How's it going, everybody? It's Charlie with 4BZ Truth. Just wanted to say hi and give you a little bit of my brain dump. I have a lot of things that are bouncing around in my head right now, and I thought that it was relevant, and I wanted to talk about it and kind of show you a little bit of the scenery in the background, because this is the yard, and it looks in full bloom where there's a lot of growth from the plants. It's the end of summer, and anyways, I like being out here. It's nice. It's gonna be like 100 degrees here, so might as well take advantage of this time right now. It's probably like 75, 80 out here. So anyways, you hear a lot of wildlife out there, or domesticated life with the dogs barking and stuff. Those are the neighbors' dogs. Okay, so to the point, you know they talk about Ascension, ascending masters or whatever. I wanted to name this video the journey of Ascension, or journey to Ascension. I don't necessarily believe Ascension means that our bodies are gonna be brought up into the clouds per se. But it makes me see, I have to filter everything through the Christian perspective, because this is the foundation of where I've come from. So Jesus ascended into heaven, and he says we will meet him in the clouds in the last days. The Gnostics always talked about how it was wisdom that they were seeking so that they can understand what basically it's all a spiritual meaning. Everything's a spiritual meaning. It's not a physical manifestation. It's actually a spiritual coming to knowledge. So this is my journey of ascension, so to speak, would be starting with just coming to realize that there's a lot of deception in the world, and to filter through everything through the correct lens of interpretation is the goal. A lot of people don't realize that their lens that they see everything through is one slice of the pie. And when I talk about the pie, I talk about knowledge or wisdom and fulfillment of destiny, so to speak. I liken this pie to Christ. Now, Christ is the ultimate fulfillment of everything. So we are ascended in the sense that we become like Christ. Now, sometimes I question whether this whole Christian perspective is actually just another slice of the pie, so that we could kind of try to get closer to understanding the whole pie. And there are a lot of things that we reject because it doesn't coincide with our paradigm of understanding the Christian realm or Christian perspective. Now, I think that this is a very, very deep issue, and to be honest with you, the deeper you get into it, the more convoluted and confusing it can become, unless you're clear in your mind. The whole thing about meditating, I don't really meditate. I like to view the surroundings, the green. I like to enjoy nature. That is a form of meditation for me. In fact, in a lot of ways, I've just come back from the Sawtooth Mountains And if nobody knows of the Sawtooth Mountains, they're in Idaho, and they're an extension of the Rocky Mountains. They're really rugged, beautiful mountains. And if you don't know anything about the Sawtooth Mountains, look it up. Google it, Sawtooth Mountains, or Stanley, Idaho, or Mount Bora. I basically was at a place called Grand Jean, Idaho, and beautiful. We had a great view of the river that was running through the North Fork of the Payette River, and it had a backdrop of the Sawtooth Mountains. It was freaking gorgeous, which made me start thinking about things on a deeper level again, because I start realizing that a lot of that beauty, a lot of the simplicity brings me back to closer to where I think we're supposed to be. And that's why all these deep issues start bouncing around in my head. And I feel like all this stuff's very important to understand. So anyways, I the road to ascension, is like acquiring knowledge, yet I don't think knowledge is actually the fullness of this completion. It's just one portion of it. The completion is actually realizing who we are and being transformed by the renewing of our mind, finding patterns and being open to. I think the difference between knowledge and wisdom is knowledge is information, wisdom is the correct application. So they go hand in hand, but wisdom is the only way you can really interpret it correctly. Now, I've been hearing a lot about this discussion of being Christ or becoming as Christ or whatever. And the more I think about this, the more I am afraid to become that, because I don't want to. I almost feel like I was trained to put Jesus on a higher pedestal, and when you start interpreting the scripture as we are Christ, we are ascended like Christ into the clouds meaning people. The people actually are the clouds. It often talks about the seas as being people as well. I don't know, my mind is racing, and I'm always thinking about this. Like, how do I put it to words? And I don't know, I want to be transformed. I want to be complete. And I just don't think that the way that our society has set everything up, it basically keeps us away from ascending, so to speak. In a lot of ways, Eastern philosophy allows you to explore these ideas more abundantly. It's like part of the government. They govern people so that they can become more spiritually minded. Now, our government, in a lot of ways in the U.S., is trying to change everything and shift it away from God. Even though they say one nation under God, indivisible. We are divided. I don't know how they would ever say we're indivisible. We are dividable, because that's all they try to do is divide us. If we were under God, I mean, what is God? They always say God is Yahweh, but then again, I mean, maybe it was never intended to be that way. Maybe it was always intended to be the God of the world, Satan, Lucifer. A lot of people will blend those two together. God and Satan, they're actually the yin and the yang, and it's all one. And I think that there's good and evil, and it's almost like water and oil. They don't blend together. They're not part of each other. That's why when Jesus talks about those who are lukewarm will be vomited out, because you should either be hot or cold. But then I kind of wonder about that scripture too. It's like hot or cold. Both have their positive attributes. Hot tea is good. Cold tea is good. So hot coffee, cold coffee. I like hot coffee better, but cold coffee is good too. Lukewarm stuff can be good too. So I don't know. How do you want to interpret that? So I don't know. One of my last, I made a video about this near-death experience and how Satan plays a role in near-death experiences. And this person decided to comment on my video saying that I am so wishy-washy and I am difficult to follow. And if this is true, I apologize to anybody, because I know I kind of bounce from subject to subject, but I'm kind of like a soap opera. It all comes back around and ties back into the main storyline. Because there are different scenes with different situations, and basically, I guess I do bring drama to the table. That's true. That's what soap operas are, is a bunch of drama. But anyways, so going back to this concept of being ascended, like an ascended master or whatever, I think that finding knowledge is good, but having wisdom to basically interpret the knowledge is better. And now recently, when I was up camping, I started talking about how to start getting healthy and losing weight and becoming, a fit weight for, my body. I'm 6'2", and I actually weigh 350, which is quite a bit. And I've gotten to the point where I need to really start evaluating this perspective, because it's easy to just go down this road of just eating and doing whatever makes you happy, but eventually it gets to a point where there's a balance. You have to balance everything and do everything in a way that your body was intended. Now that I'm realizing, it's not like I just now realized it, but I'm trying to find the path of least resistance, because no matter how it happens, it's going to be a hard road. But what road is less rocky and hard to go down is kind of the journey I want to go. But then again, I want to figure out what works too. So sometimes people don't really okay, so I'm just going to say right now that the keto diet is what I'm trying right now. Really just eating a bunch of really fattening bacon type stuff. And I've come to realize that, fat and lard and all this other stuff is just a form of energy. Bacon grease is a form of energy. Sugar's a form of energy. Protein's a form of energy. It's just however your body decides to process it is really what determines how you distribute the energy storage, or how you store it, I should say. So, and there's a life lesson here. It is best to eat the energy that spikes your insulin the least, and fat actually does that the least. So, and protein is the next in line. So if I eat a lot of protein, I'll probably have I'll probably have more trouble losing weight if I eat nothing but protein than if I ate nothing but fat. But again, everything in moderation. If you just sit there and eat fat all day, you're going to have malnutrition, and you're not going to be able to get all the vitamins and minerals that you need. So I think that they say it's best to eat fat with vegetables and just lessen your carbs. See, carbs are just another form of energy, but they burn a lot faster, and they spike your insulin. And insulin has a negative effect on your body when you have too much, because you get inflammation. And inflammation, see, it's just a balance. So for me right now, I'm trying to deal with this whole issue of being overweight. Now, liken that to a spiritual thing. We are trying to balance life and trying to understand the values that get us closer to the ascension. Now, I don't think I'm going to ascend into the clouds like, the way the Bible describes it. But I think that, I guess in Revelation it does talk about how at Jesus' second coming, he's going to meet us in the clouds. We're going to ascend into heaven. But the heaven that is described, I believe, is in the clouds, and that's the cloud of the saints that are in the sky, or it could be on. But it does specify that, if they talk about the Christ being in the desert, or in the secret place, or whatever, that believe it not, because that Christ will return in coming descending from heaven onto the earth, where he'll descend upon the Mount of Olives or something like that. There's a lot of different ways to look at this stuff, and a lot of people, I get a lot of freaking people that say, man, you're a moron, you don't know what you're talking about. And sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I'm just trying to figure things out, and I'm just talking out loud. And that's one thing about this world in which we live. People appreciate you more when you act like you know more. But the problem with that is sometimes you could say you know something, but again, it's knowledge. Knowledge doesn't necessarily mean that you have the correct filter of interpretation. So to present yourself as somebody that knows everything really is ignorant, in my opinion. So if I present myself like, man, I don't really know for sure, but this is my perspective, and I'm starting to see patterns that help me identify to certain things, and I want to share this with everybody. If you're going to be on your high horse saying that I'm an idiot because I don't see it through your perspective, then clearly you're mistaken, because nobody knows. Nobody has acquired the fullness of knowledge. Jesus actually is the closest thing that I would consider, that reached the goal. And this whole concept of New Age thinking. You know, I think about, okay, going back to the journey of Ascension. I listen to Zen Garcia. I listen to, what's that guy's name? I can't think of it right now. I'll think about it in a second. But he's the guy that narrated the Book of Enoch early on. Robert, it's in the tip of my mind here. Anyways, he's both of those guys are basically talking about extra biblical texts and how they a lot of them tie into the Bible, and how they were rejected books of the Bible or whatever, and that they should have been accepted into the biblical canon. And I've gotten to the point where I don't really look at the biblical canon like a restrictive barrier from allowing any other texts in, but it's more like it kind of establishes a foundation, and then you start filtering everything through that, which may or may not be the right way to look at it. I don't know. But the patterns that I'm starting to see is that, I think that there are people that wanted to do right, and they had a values honor system. They wanted to make sure that they passed down the correct knowledge. And I guess the things that might have been lost in translation were the wisdom or the filter of understanding, because people, I think, don't know how to filter anymore, filter the correct understanding. So anyways, I just feel like, these guys, Zen Garcia and Apocryphile 1970, that's what it was. That's the YouTube channel, Apocryphile 1970, and his name is Robert something. Listening to both of those guys, they kind of start gravitating toward like a new age way of looking at things, and in a lot of ways it's kind of scary, because all of my Christian life I have been told to not venture down those roads, because you'll get to a place where you'll get to a point of no return. You won't return to the faith because you're departing from the faith by researching this information. But I don't really look at it that way. I'm starting to realize that I had a piece of the pie, and now I'm venturing to look at other slices of the pie. And I think that the fullness of everything is when you start acquiring all, really just the fundamentals of everything, I believe, is summed up into one thing, and that is love. Love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus said it. He said that encompasses all that's the fulfillment of the commandments, is if you love. If you love, you're going to fulfill the commandments. If you want to fulfill the commandments, you're going to love. So I think that it's true. That's the pattern that I see throughout everything, is that love is what basically causes us to ascend to the higher levels of spirituality. Selfishness, greed, pride, those are things that separate us from love. We love our neighbors and love our God. And our God is what? Our God is the Word. Our God is wisdom. Our God is power. And all of those combined create the quote-unquote Trinity. But I actually look at it like the Trinity is kind of like a biblical canon. It's like you have to interpret it through that filter. But I actually look at the Trinity more now like it's just I'm trying to think of the right word. Well, I don't know. It's just it's a uniformality, or I don't even know what you call it. Basically, it's just taking a little piece of these three traits and creating a Godhead. But I believe that however God manifests, is love part of the Trinity? I think God manifests as love. Anyways, the bottom line of all this is really just trying to understand that we are trying. Some people are on a path. The journey through this narrow path, in my opinion, is difficult, and it's hard to get to the other side. But we're willing to tread through the difficult so that we can acquire wisdom and knowledge and love and power. And I think it's gotten to the point where I need to cut this video off because my baby is waking up from his nap. So I don't know if you can see this. All right. Hey, I appreciate you guys listening to my rants, and I look forward to hearing any feedback that you have. Please like this video and subscribe. I'll talk to you later. All right, bye.